August 9th, 2016, Greystone, Illinois. At exactly 7:42 p.m., a neighbor heard the front door slam at the Wynn residence. Two voices have been arguing, one soft and strained, the other loud, frantic, and unmistakably male. That would be the last time anyone saw 24-year-old Marcus Wynn. Marcus had never been the kind of guy to vanish. He worked the evening shift at a local hardware store, kept to himself, and lived quietly in the same small blue house he grew up in with his mother, Patricia Wynn. Friends said Marcus was quiet, polite, and maybe a little off, but harmless. He played piano, volunteered at the community center, and rode the same old red bicycle everywhere he went. So when he missed his shift that night, and the next, people started asking questions. But no one expected what Patricia would say. At 10 a.m. the next morning, Patricia Wynn walked into the Greystone Police Department, holding a framed photo of her son and a cup of coffee in one hand. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "My son's gone. He left last night after we argued. I haven't seen or heard from him." The officer on duty noted her composure. No tears. No tremble in her voice. But everything else seemed normal. She said Marcus had stormed out without his phone, that they'd fought over money, again, that he was sensitive, and might just be blowing off steam. She reported he was wearing a black hoodie, gray sweatpant, and tennis shoes. By all appearances, she was a mother worried for her son. Police entered the report into the system. The first of what would become 237 pages of dead ends. The first week was hopeful. Friends and co-workers posted flyers, organized a search party, and canvassed local streets. There were no signs of a struggle at the house. No surveillance footage of Marcus leaving. No bank activity. No social media. His bike was still at home. So was his wallet, his ID, his piano sheet music with a half-finished song on the stand. It was as if he had walked out and evaporated. The town leaned in. People whispered that maybe he'd run away. Maybe he was hiding something. But the people who knew him best didn't buy it. Marcus wasn't a runaway. He was a routine guy. He hated unpredictability. Co-worker interview, 2016. On the fourth night, a neighbor named Mrs. Kilpatrick, who lived behind the Wynns, told police she heard something unusual around 3 a.m. It was like tapping or knocking, faint, from the ground. Almost, I thought maybe a raccoon got stuck in the crawl space. Officers checked the basement and backyard. Nothing. They thanked her, moved on, but when she pressed, when she asked why Patricia had started burning candles in the basement window and covering it with a sheet, the officers just shrugged. There was no probable cause, just a missing person and a quiet, grieving mother. After a month, the search scaled back. After 3, the posters began to fade. Patricia appeared on local news in September, holding the same framed photo of Marcus. "I just want my boy home. If anyone's seen him, please, we need closure." Her voice cracked perfectly. A single tear ran down her cheek. She was featured in 2 missing person blogs, even started a local awareness group. But behind her eyes, one detective later said, there was something rehearsed. Still, with no body, no leads, and no digital trail, the town moved on. Marcus's cousin, Jada, never stopped digging. She told officers Marcus had been getting paranoid in the months leading up to his disappearance. He'd told her his mom was acting strange, locking doors, whispering on the phone, and saying things like, "If they come for you, don't answer the door." He even once called Jada from the park to say, "If something happens to me, start with her." But when Jada repeated that to the police, they dismissed it. There's no evidence to suggest foul play, the report read. Just a quiet young man, and a mother left behind. Or so they thought. October 2016, 2 months after Marcus disappeared. On the surface, Patricia Wynn became the image of heartbreak. She organized prayer vigils, handed out flyers at grocery stores, even stood in front of the church, hugging anyone who cried about Marcus. Local news dubbed her the Iron Lady of Greystone, a mother who hadn't given up hope, who carried her grief with grace. But behind the TV sound bites, something else was unraveling, the smile that didn't match her eyes. In every interview, Patricia wore the same outfit, a navy cardigan, a silver cross necklace, and a framed photo of Marcus tucked beneath her arm. She rarely blinked, rarely faltered, and never said the words dead or gone, only missing. That calm composure made her a local icon, but for a few, it was unnerving. Marcus's cousin Jada was one of them. It was like she was performing, like this version of her only existed for cameras. Jada noticed something else too. Patricia was never home when people stopped by unannounced. She always said she was out looking, but no one ever saw her on the search routes. The Foundation. 3 months after Marcus's disappearance, Patricia launched the Win Foundation, a non-profit for families of missing persons. It gained support fast, with fundraisers, church donations, and a GoFundMe that raised over $28,000 a month. She gave speeches, lit candles, made social media posts with quotes like, "Grief is just love with no place to go." But none of the money ever went toward private investigators, or DNA testing, or reopening Marcus's file. Most of it vanished. Jada pushes back. Jada started asking uncomfortable questions. Why didn't Patricia hire a PI? Why was she buying new furniture? Why did she tell the local pastor to stop bringing up Marcus in sermons? At Thanksgiving, she confronted Patricia directly. "If you know something, just say it." Patricia's response was chilling. "You don't know what grief does to a mother, Jada. Don't speak on things you can't feel." And that was the end of it. Jada was cut off, blocked, uninvited from family functions. Strange sounds, again. By January 2017, a new neighbor, a retired veteran named Tommy Griggs, had moved in next door. He later told investigators that, once every few weeks, he heard something strange through the basement wall, like coughing or sobbing, but not loud, like someone trying not to be heard. He once knocked on Patricia's door to ask if everything was okay. She smiled and said, "Oh, that's just a boiler. It makes awful noises when the weather's cold." But the sound didn't come from the boiler. It came from the west side wall. Greystone police never searched the basement. There was no warrant, no body, no sign of a crime. But what they didn't know was that Patricia had renovated the basement herself, quietly, in the spring of 2015. She paid cash, didn't pull permits, and the work was done by a handyman who later moved states. She claimed it was for storage, but no one ever saw inside. Not friends, not family, not even church members who came by to pray. In one 2018 interview, the reporter asked Patricia if she believed Marcus was still alive. For the first time, she hesitated. She looked off camera and whispered, "If he is, I hope he's found peace." That line didn't air, but the cameraman later recalled that her tone was cold, almost like she was relieved. During a 2020 podcast, Patricia said, "Grief is like having a ghost in the house. Sometimes I still feel Marcus with me in the walls." She laughed after saying it. The host thought it was poetic, but Jada never forgot those words. April 3rd, 2023, Greystone, Illinois. It was a normal Monday morning in the quiet town of Greystone. Spring had returned. Birds chirped. Lawns were freshly cut. Life moved on. No one expected that a call from the local plumbing company would unravel a secret buried for 7 years. Beneath the floorboards of a home everyone thought they knew. The work order that changed everything. 10:17 a.m. A call came into Lakeside Plumbing and Repair. Patricia reported a water leak in her basement. "Old pipes," she said. Hissing sound. Urgent. A technician named Carlos Mendez, 29, was dispatched by noon. When he arrived, Patricia was calm, welcoming, smiling as always, but she insisted on waiting upstairs. "The basement gives me migraines," she joked. "Just fix what you can." Carlos thought nothing of it. At first, the discovery. As Carlos stepped into the basement, he noticed the space was unusually quiet. No furniture, no storage boxes, just bare walls, except for one side, which looked newer than the rest. One wall had fresh drywall. The paint was a different tone, and oddly, the floor was warmer near it. As he began inspecting the pipes overhead, he heard something. 3 knocks. Sharp, soft, deliberate. He froze. Then again, 3 knocks, slower this time. Almost a pattern. He turned toward the wall, held his breath, and from behind the drywall, he heard a voice. Hello? The 911 call. Carlos ran up the stairs, breathless. Patricia was standing by the kitchen window, sipping tea. Did you fix it? He couldn't speak. He simply turned and walked outside. From his truck, he called 911. There's someone in the basement. They're alive, and they're not supposed to be there. The police returned. By 2:04 p.m., Greystone police had surrounded the house. Patricia remained calm as they spoke to her on the porch. It's all a mistake, she said. There's no one here but me. But when they asked to search the basement, she hesitated. You need a warrant. Moments later, she tried to walk back inside, and that's when they detained her, with a warrant expedited due to emergency circumstances. Officers entered the basement at 3:32 p.m. The hidden room, behind the fresh drywall, they discovered a false partition. Inside was a soundproof room, roughly 10 by 6 feet. Mattress, bucket, old blankets, a cracked mirror, a single bulb, and sitting on the mattress was Marcus Wynn. Gaunt, pale, hair down to his shoulders, eyes wide, terrified, adjusting to the light. Is she gone? He whispered. The condition he was found in. Marcus had lost over 60 pounds. His skin was pale from years without sunlight. His voice was weak, but his mind was alert. When medics arrived, he clung to the responding officer's jacket. I didn't run away. She told me I had to stay. She said they'd kill me if I left. The town reacts. News broke within hours. The woman who cried on TV, who held candlelight vigils, who raised thousands in donations, had been hiding her son beneath her house the entire time. The community was stunned. Some wept in disbelief. Others were furious. But Jada, she stood silently outside the house, watching it all unfold. I always knew something was off, but I didn't know it was this evil. Patricia's arrest. Patricia Wynn was arrested without resistance. She gave no statement, no apology, no explanation. When asked by a reporter if she had anything to say to her son, she said, I did what I had to do. The world outside was never going to protect him. April 2023. Marcus Wynn, age 31. For 7 years, the world believed Marcus Wynn had disappeared. And when he was found, hidden in a soundproof room behind his mother's basement wall, the town asked the same haunting question. Why didn't he try to escape? But the real question was more chilling. What made him believe he couldn't? The first days underground. In his initial police interview, Marcus spoke softly, voice raspy, almost unsure. He said the day he disappeared began like any other. A small argument, a slammed door, then nothing. He claimed he'd blacked out. When he woke up, he was already in the basement room. The door was locked, the walls padded. I thought she was punishing me, he said. I thought it would be over in a day. It wasn't. The lie that kept him silent. The next day, Patricia came down with a tray of food. She sat in the doorway and spoke slowly. You got into trouble. The police think you did something, but I'm protecting you. Marcus, confused, demanded answers. She told him the truth would get him killed. That police were outside. That neighbors were suspicious. That people were angry and waiting to make him disappear for good. He asked to leave. She smiled. If you walk out now, you won't last 24 hours. I'm the only one keeping you safe. The fear conditioning. Weeks turned into months. Marcus stopped yelling, stopped asking to leave. He began believing the lies. He said, I kept thinking, if she's lying, why hasn't anyone found me? If I really mattered, why didn't the police break in? Why didn't anyone come? Patricia reinforced it constantly. They think you're dead. I saw Jada last week. She's moved on. They replaced you. She brought him newspaper clippings. Some real, some fake. In that small room, her voice was the only one that echoed. And over time, Marcus stopped believing in any other. The breaking point. In 2018, Marcus tried to escape. He faked being unconscious, hoping she'd unlock the inner door. But Patricia didn't take the bait. Instead, she installed a second bolt, removed the mattress for a week, cut his food supply in half. When asked why he didn't try again, Marcus simply said, "Because I wasn't sure anymore if I deserved to leave." The emotional twist. What broke Marcus wasn't the confinement. It wasn't the silence. It wasn't the physical decay. It was the idea that maybe no one would believe him. She said people would think I was crazy, that I ran away and came back for attention, and that if I ever talked, they'd just call me broken. That fear kept him caged long after the lock stopped working. Yes, at some point, the door wasn't even locked anymore, but he stayed, because by then he was already convinced there was no world left for him outside. His final realization. The day he was found, he didn't cry. He didn't scream. He just sat quietly and asked, "Is it really safe now?" June 2023, Greystone, Illinois. The small-town courthouse was packed. Locals who had lit candles for Marcus Wynn now sat in stunned silence, waiting to hear the sentence of the woman they once called the strongest mother in town. Patricia Wynn, 62 years old, stood before the court. Her son, Marcus, sat in the back row, no expression, just eyes locked on the floor. The charges. Patricia faced multiple felony counts. Unlawful imprisonment, abuse and neglect, fraud related to the Wynn Foundation donations, obstruction of justice. The evidence was overwhelming. Testimony from Marcus, photos of the hidden room, financial records, even a handwritten journal Patricia kept, detailing her actions. "If the world won't protect my son," she once wrote, "then I will keep him where it can't reach him." The defense. Her attorney pleaded mental instability. They claimed Patricia had suffered a psychotic breakdown after the death of her husband years earlier, that she became convinced Marcus was in danger from unseen forces, that her actions, while extreme, were rooted in maternal fear, not malice. The defense leaned heavily on the term delusional protective disorder, and while the prosecution fought back hard, the jury deliberated only 6 hours. The verdict, guilty on all counts. But the real shock came during sentencing. Instead of prison, Patricia was sentenced to 10 years in a state psychiatric facility. She would be eligible for review in just 3. The town reacts. People were furious. She knew what she was doing. She lied for years and smiled while doing it. 3 years and she might walk free? That's justice. The same neighbors who once brought her casseroles now cursed her name. The foundation was shut down. Donors demanded refunds. News crews flooded Greystone for weeks. But in the middle of the chaos, Marcus remained quiet. Marcus speaks one last time. In a letter shared by his cousin Jada, Marcus wrote, "People keep asking me if I hate her. But the truth is, I spent 7 years listening to her lies, and now I finally get to live in silence. That's all I want." He didn't attend the final day of the trial. He moved out of state 2 weeks later, changed his name, started over, and as of today, he's never spoken publicly again. The final twist. 2 months after sentencing, a guard at the psychiatric facility reported something strange. Patricia, during an art therapy session, had drawn a small room, a mattress, a cracked mirror, and on the wall, in red crayon, she'd written, "Safe, safe, safe." Now I ask you, if someone claimed they imprisoned their child to protect them, do you think it's love or control? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear your take on this.